I'm here today to talk about an epidemic that has killed thousands of people in our country. I'm talking about a drug that has injured and destroyed many families over the last several years. Basically, I'm talking about opiates, drugs like Percocet, Vicodin, Oxycontin, fentanyl, and even heroin. They're taking over 100 people a day in our country to their graves. The purpose of my day was in 2016. On March 16th of 2016, we found my son Preston in his own house in a bathroom with the door locked, dead of an overdose of heroin. My life has come down to before that day and after that day. The purpose of this program is to give information to you, mostly common sense stuff that could help you know what to do. I know this information is stuff that if I'd have known 20 years ago, I'm confident my son would still be here today. I'm talking about opiates. Opiates are basically pain relievers that attach to the pain receptors in your brain, in your back, and in your gastrointestinal tract. They're abused when a person takes a drug, basically a lot of times prescribed by a doctor or a dentist, and they enjoy the feeling. That's called the beginning high. It's a high that a lot of people will be chasing for the rest of their lives. According to statistics, about 20 to 25% of people who try a opiate like the feeling they get from it, the comfortable feeling, and have an extreme opportunity to become addicted to it. What happens is they use one today. In a couple days, they need two to get the same feeling because your body builds a tolerance. By next week, they're using 5 pills 4 times a day, and it continues to go on that way until they have to go to different doctors to get the drugs, and then you start the doctor shopping to get this medication. When that runs out, there's really no other choice but to go on the street. How big is the problem? Well, this was started by one of the big pharma companies. They patented a drug, Oxycontin. Oxycontin was scheduled to be a drug for late-stage cancer patients. It was changed. They decided they could make more money by making it for acute and chronic pain. Chronic would be sort of like a bad back. Acute would be like a broken bone or a dental procedure. It was considered to be the worst medical mistake in the history of the United States. But make no mistake, this is an epidemic that is killing people in our country right now. I'd like to show you the first short video.
The United States of America is writing a prescription for pain that is wiping young people like me off the map. Our addiction to legally prescribed pain pills, like oxycodone or hydrocodone, is leading a lot of us straight to heroin. That's because prescription painkillers and heroin are both opioids. So when we can't get a refill, heroin is the only way to stop our pain or to get the same high. And heroin's less expensive and easier to get. I can have black tar heroin delivered to my house faster than a pizza. Once we start, we have to keep using. Not for the high, but because we get sick from withdrawal if we try to stop. It's an epidemic. We're rich, poor, and middle class. We're from farms, cities, and suburbs. We're from families who had big hopes that we'd live healthy lives and not fall so far from such a high.
What are opiates? Well, I can tell you, it's pain medication, but when I was a young father, I was a single dad for about 7 years, and I raised my kids by myself. And my son, when he was 12, broke his wrist. We went to the doctor. The doctor probably asked him, do you need something a little stronger than aspirin? And he would have said sure, and he got Vicodin or Percocet or something like that. That would have been his first experience trying this drug. I, however, had no idea that this drug could do what it could possibly do. Top left here, you see the poppy plant. A poppy field is where poppy plant is where all the opiates, organic, come from. The poppy field is a beautiful one to see itself, but it is a deadly one. There are also synthetic opiates which are made in a lab, and you see on the bottom These drugs are basically the ones that you'll find most of the opiates that go from legal to the illegal, basically heroin. But if you look at the molecular breakup of heroin with codeine and oxycodone, they're virtually the same thing. It's virtually the same drug. This is how it starts. In the top left, you'll notice a man taking probably a prescription drug from his doctor or his dentist for some kind of a pain. You continue to use this, but like I said earlier, it develops where you need more to get the same high. Because of the tolerance that your body builds up, you need more to get the same relief. Oxycontin is a drug that really became the big one where people would take it, and in order to get a quicker high from it, they would crush it. That defeats the time release in the drug, and then you can snort it or smoke it and get the effect quicker. The most dangerous way to get it and the quickest way to get it is injections. You use the needle. Now the needles on the street are not always clean, so with needles you're also dealing with the possibility of disease such as hepatitis C or AIDS. Or a good friend of mine, her son got sepsis. It's a disease of the blood. He was in California. They spent years trying to save him. He stayed in the hospital in California with this disease for 61 days in the ICU and then passed away. Rhonda will never get over it. She's heard like any of us parents who've lost a child. She will never get past this feeling. But the state of California paid for 61 days of ICU for Brandon before he passed away. This is what's driving the deaths in opioids. You look at these numbers here on the left back in 2004 to about 2013. The numbers seem manageable, but when you look at those numbers, the way I look at it, each one of those numbers is a family tragedy that some family had to deal with and just got torn apart. But you can see where when fentanyl became the thing, and fentanyl is a drug that comes from China. It comes in through Mexico. Just the other day there was a drug bust on the Mexican border. They got enough fentanyl to actually kill over 70 million people in one drug bust. So we don't know how much is getting in, but that was what that load was. But you can see what's happened to the deaths because fentanyl is getting into these drugs. On the picture that just came up, you can see these are pills that look like Vicodins or Percocets. They come for a lot of them from the cartels in Mexico. They're fake drugs. Competition now has got these guys to add fentanyl into these pills to give them a little better hit. But they're not being made in a lab. They're being made in a backyard or a garage or a house or something. And so you don't know how much fentanyl is in there. If you take a pill thinking it's a Percocet and it's got some fentanyl in it, it may be the last pill you ever take. Why people start abusing, obviously medications for pain from some kind of a surgery or a dental procedure, but it develops into a tolerance and you need more, and you need more to get the same high if you're one of those people who gets a comfortable feeling from the drug. Some people use it to cope with emotional stress. The one I can't even understand is there are people who actually do it as an experiment. Kids that actually will try it, they call them pill parties. They'll actually take some pills to see what happens. That's almost stunning. Why people keep using opiates, like I said before, the body builds a tolerance. You need more and more to get the same feeling. But what happens once you get to where your body's built up a tolerance to get off of this drug, now you have to go through the withdrawals. And again, like I said, this drug attaches to the pain receptors in your brain and your back and your stomach. And as you know, when your stomach isn't happy, you're not happy. These three things attack you in this withdrawal system, and you go through about 2 to 3 days of absolute total misery. It's been described to me by people that have gone through it as 100 times worse than the worst case of the flu. But you can get through it. It's about a 5-day procedure to break off of the physical addiction to an opiate. But the emotional withdrawal, what they say lasts for months, actually can last for years. There's people that have been alcoholics that quit drinking for 25 or 30 years and then start again. So the emotional addiction is really never gone. You're always there. This is Nacho, just a brief story about his story.
I had gone through tons of withdrawals, times where, you're sick, it feels like 1,000 times worse than the flu, you're sweaty, you're trying to get through anything. I would walk into class, in these withdrawals, and I would go through this horrible week, and, never gonna do this again. And 2 days later, I'd already made it through the acute withdrawals, but I was using again, and knowing full well that I'm gonna have to go through that again at some point. I wish I knew really what these prescription pills were. These are all synthetic forms of heroin.
How big is the problem? The opioid crisis now. I don't know what stat you'd want to go by, but the number I've heard is close to 200 a day, and the problem is not going away. The FDA just approved another opioid stronger than fentanyl, and it's a problem that's here to stay. People are going to be using this stuff. They're going to get addicted, and they're going to find ways to get it. If you look and notice this, overdose drug deaths are now the leading cause of accidental deaths in the United States. Over 47,000 in 2014. The numbers now are closer to 200 in a day, but if you look at this back then, 81 people a day died from overdoses of drugs, opiates. If you took 3 days supply of people there, that's about how many people we have in an airplane. If a commercial airliner was crashing in the United States every 3 days and there were no survivors, do you think we'd do something about it? This is of course Arizona, my state, where you look at the 44% increase in opioid pain relievers. This is the age group, strangely enough, the leading age group for opioid overdoses of legal prescriptions is 45 to 54. Apparently that is because that's when people start having their first chronic type pains that affect people as they age. But if you look at the heroin, because of the addition of fentanyl, has just continued to go up by almost 700%, and that is a number that's increasing. You can see here that in every year where they did this graph, more people died from drug overdoses than died from car accidents in the state of Arizona. This is the major cartel routes into the United States where the drugs come in, and you can see we have plenty of it coming. And how much? This is a part that is almost stunning. In Arizona, $213 million. If you consider Arizona to be an average state, and there are some that are bigger and some that are smaller, but if you consider it average, that works out to over $10 billion in 2014. Now you can figure that the problem has gotten worse, and medical expenses, as you know, go up every year. You can probably double that at least to $20 billion a year that's going into trying to prevent or help this problem. This does not include any of the costs for law enforcement. It doesn't include any of the costs for courts or for attorneys, a court-appointed or prosecuting attorneys that we all pay for. It doesn't include any jails or prisons. It doesn't include any of the 30-day programs that families put their loved ones through trying to get them through. And I can tell you, one year we spent almost $53,000. And you know, the expense is astronomical. What we can do, actions we can take, action parents can take, I'm going to come back to that briefly. But first of all, talk. Talk to your kids. Kids will listen. They may act like they don't. They may act a little bit like they don't, you're not with it. They can't pay attention. They're not paying attention to you. But if you talk with them, you set limits from when they're young, they will listen. Ask questions that are open-ended, which basically are questions that don't have a yes or no answer. Get them involved in the question so they have to actually answer the question. Try to understand your teen's point of view. But keep talking to them from a young age as long as they're in your care. And I can tell you that in a survey done of thousands of high school students, when asked why they didn't use, the number one answer given was, I didn't want to disappoint my parents. These are the things you look for if you have a problem with someone in your family. These are things I found in my son's room under the mattress. They don't hide them very well, these, because they need them. But these are the aluminum foil and the spoons they use for burning stuff to get it into an injectable. Then you look at the arm on the right. These are the kind of needle marks you're going to find from a heroin user trying to get the heroin into their vein. A lot of times these guys, people will also use meth to try to make them appear like they're normal, because when you're using heroin, you go into like a nod where you see someone just sit there and they act like they're just dumbfounded and they don't move and they're just like that, and they stay that way for a day. If you have to work or you have to function, you add meth to get yourself awake. So now you've got something in your body that is slowing everything down, and you've got something else that's kicking everything up. And you may appear to be normal, but inside your body it's tearing itself apart. You're anything but normal. But these are the different things you might find. The track marks, you might notice pills missing. And this is the one that bothered me the most. When my son was with me, he worked for my business. We had a vending business. He was the type that thought he got paid too much. I would find $50 bills in his bag sometimes because he wanted to put money back. He thought I paid him too much. But when he was using, I found hundreds of $1 bills hidden in his stuff that I knew he took from the company. And this is something that him in his normal mind would never have done. This is the last story. This is Aaron. Aaron was at a pill party. He took some pills, like everyone else there did. He went to sleep. He was at a friend's house. They tried to wake him up. They couldn't wake him up, so they got scared. They got the mom there. The mom was nervous too. They didn't want to call the police because they were afraid that they might get in trouble. So they tried to wake him up with ice water. Nothing was doing it. So then they finally called the paramedics. Here's the story of Aaron.
He was full of energy.
Full of energy and loved to wrestle and goof around and
Play. He was very lighthearted, fun child.
I didn't know what he was taking. He was 220, handsome. The addiction is so strong. These kids don't know how to handle it. Ready to get in the chair? It's a fine mess you got us into, isn't it? We'd much rather have Aaron like this than dead. And a lot of parents don't have that luxury. We can kiss our son at night. What a life, huh? Dad shave you in you? You like shaving? One yes, two no. No.
The worst consequence is death. Other consequences are, like Aaron, trapped in your own body, alive, but still unable to communicate the way that you would hope that you could. You also lose all of your hopes and dreams and things that you wanted to accomplish in your life.
You can help.
Did you ever think anything bad would happen taking prescription pills, Aaron? 1 for yes, 2 for no. No.
Help save kids from prescription drug abuse. Secure your medications and talk with your kids. Visit drugfree.org.
This story you just saw is a story of someone who didn't die from the drug, but you can see the nightmare the family will be in now, and he'll be in for the rest of his life. This is part of the cost we don't see every day. This is naloxone. It's actually a drug that instantly reverses the effect of an opiate. Someone getting a hit of naloxone when they're in an overdose actually would come out of it so fast that they'd probably be upset at you for ruining their high. It's instantaneous. But if used, basically, you want to make sure that you call 911. But naloxone is now legal in about 41 states in the District of Columbia to just go buy on yourself. You don't need to have a prescription. You can just carry it with you. I carry one with me at all times. You never know when you might need it. If you have someone in your world that might be at risk, it's a real good thing to have because it's way too late to get it when you need it. This is just a law that was passed in Arizona allowing it to be distributed legally. This is a misconception. Do not wait for rock bottom because unfortunately rock bottom in an opiate addiction is usually 6 feet under. The earlier you get someone in to help, the better their chances of recovery. This I never did, but don't let the stigma stop you from doing something. Don't let worrying about your neighbor thinking, oh my gosh, they've got a son that's got a heroin problem or a daughter. You don't worry about that. You need to take care of the person that you love. Face up to that and take care of it. But do ask questions. If you go to a recovery program, they're not all equal. I went to one where I paid $5,000 down and they told me that my son wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom alone for the first 30 days. And he called me the second day from a convenience store drinking a beer out in front of it. So you never know. But very important also is self-care. Because if you're living in this, we went through it for 5 years with my son. When he tried, we went through programs, but it's a nightmare. It's a living nightmare. You are constantly worried where that person is, what they're doing right now. And if you see them in a bathroom, which is where things seem to happen, and the door shut, it's terrifying. This in Arizona is the substance abuse, arizona.gov. And there's one of these in every state, and there's national ones. Then there's palgroup.org, which is a group for basically not just parents, but anyone with an addicted loved one that needs help. Because a lot of times you just need someone to talk to. It feels good to know there's someone else going through the same misery or that has been there and can tell you what to do, maybe some good advice. In any way, you feel a little bit of relief from that. This is the program in Arizona that helped get it through, but basically it's Partnership for Drug-Free Kids that came to this program. And this is the last page, but probably the most important page. If you're a parent, if there's anything you take away from this program, please pay attention to this. If you're a parent, there are some things you can do that I never thought of myself. Any drugs you have and alcohol, lock up, buy a safe. Go to Costco or Sam's Club and buy a safe, a simple little safe. It might cost you $200 or $300, but that's about 6 hours worth of time in a recovery program. And missing all that expense and all that tragedy is way worth it. It'll be the best $300 investment you can possibly make. Explain peer pressure to your children. Peer pressure is when someone's going to try to talk them into doing something stupid. If they know that it's stupid, they need to realize, and they need to tell the person that's trying to talk them into doing it that it's stupid. Generally, if they do, the rest of the kids that are in there that we're going to be talked into something stupid are going to go, I didn't want to do it either, because we know it's stupid. Also, watch your kids for changes in their friends. If they start having different kinds of friends, maybe there's something going on there. And you can watch their friends. If their friends start leaving and doing strange things, you might tell the parents that you see something going on. If you're a kid, if you're a friend, and you see a friend start to change or start to have different friends, they quit hanging out with you, they become withdrawn or socially just, not open like they were before, you might tell their parents, or you have your parents tell them. You're not tattletelling if you tell someone that their kids are using drugs. You're giving them a chance to save their child from a life of misery, or possibly them from a life of misery for losing that child. Healthcare providers, you're hoping that they understand that this is a disease. They know the use of naloxone and they can help somebody, and they know the right place to send somebody if they have a problem. If someone comes in for an overdose, they can give them some valuable information. If it's an educator, you want the educator, that's the teacher. They're with your kids probably as much as you or more. They see how they act. If they see them acting different, it would be a great thing if the teachers were aware of what to notice and maybe let the parent know, hey, I've noticed that your kids are starting to hang around with different people that I don't think you'd be very comfortable with. And community leaders or law enforcement, there's a lot of things they can do. Obviously, they've got to understand they're dealing with people that have disease and they need to help them get into some kind of a program if they can. They need to know the use of naloxone. There are some police precincts, police departments in the country that now have a program where if you walk up to a police officer with your drugs and your paraphernalia and you hand it to him, they will not arrest you, they will not cite you, they will take you to a recovery program with no charges whatsoever. This is the kind of program that can really help people that want help. And that's the end of the program. Thank you very much for your time.